I really focus on the different forms of hate that come to be an expression of both individuals and groups. I think when something like the Oklahoma City bombing happens, we say, how did this happen? What kind of explosives were used? Who committed the act? So we'll ask questions like that, but then we kind of fall short in terms of thinking about some of the cultural underpinnings that ultimately help produce an act of violence like the Oklahoma City bombing. People aren't born with this kind of hate in terms of their beliefs. They don't have hate in their heart when a child's born. I try to study hate by using a variety of different methods. But first and foremost, I want to be able to talk to people. I want to be able to see what they're doing in their ordinary, everyday lives. I want to be able to look at how they raise their children. And then more recently, we've been doing intensive life history interviews with former members of hate groups.
We are the Ku Klux Klan. We are an organization to help out America, to take our street back from these thugs, these punks.
People, they have to be socialized into this kind of an environment or something else happening later in life that pushes them in that direction. Usually a complex set of factors that ultimately lead a person to become involved in these kind of groups. Especially with younger people who get involved in these groups, oftentimes the ideology, the hate, is secondary to these other underlying social problems that they've been experiencing throughout childhood and into adolescence. They're often raised not in families with members of these types of groups. They're actually being raised in families where there are beliefs that have some degree of consistency. So maybe they're hearing the N-word at home by their parents, or they're being taught certain things in terms of homophobia or anti-Semitism and so forth. So they're kind of socialized in an environment like that. But also what's also happening in their childhood is they're experiencing a lot of instability. So they're reporting high rates of drug abuse in their family environments growing up as a child. They're reporting, relatively speaking, high rates of sexual abuse, physical abuse, parental neglect, parental abandonment, parental incarceration. And so by adolescence, they're starting to engage in misconduct at school, maybe getting into fights. It may be accidental in some cases where they just happen to run into a member of one of these groups. For instance, folks attending music shows, and they run into somebody who's a recruiter from a white supremacist group that kind of latches onto them, and they end up building a relationship with that person, and that becomes their kind of entree point. But there's that background that they've experienced in terms of their family socialization that's kind of primed them in a way in terms of the beliefs. Or at least it's made it not a big jump from what they were raised around in terms of beliefs to what these groups are espousing in terms of beliefs. They have an underground music scene that now with the internet and cyberspace is actually not all that underground. They used music as a way to organize social occasions to help sustain the relationships, the social ties that really make up their world. To really understand something like the Oklahoma City bombing, you have to understand that kind of underground, kind of the hidden spaces of hate, as we refer to it, where this kind of these cultural environments are helping promote these beliefs that in some cases lead to this type of violence. And so when you have an individual like Tim McVeigh, he's often described as kind of a lone wolf, so-called, or a lone actor. But he was part of a much larger kind of cultural environment where these kinds of beliefs were prominent and where people had these kind of social activities and social occasions that were organized around these beliefs. And so one of the things I think is dangerous is that we will often disavow these groups. We think that that's kind of the end of the story, that if we just say these groups are illegitimate and don't represent American society and are anti-democratic, that that's kind of the end of the story. But we forget that these groups represent a much bigger, more insidious, more pervasive problem.